How do you find motivation? Make fitness a priority. Find that work-life fitness balance that allows you to build the body you want and also just make it a habit. Make it a part of your lifestyle. We're going to answer all of these questions and more on today's episode of Conquer the Q&A. Today's a little bit different. I'm your host, Lindsay Pickowitz.
And I am your co-host, Brian Pickowitz.
And today we are going to be approaching our podcast a little bit differently because we've received some really great questions lately that we want to take the time to answer because we know you're probably asking the same things.
Yeah, and these questions came from a post in our private Facebook community, Energy Secrets for Business Owners, a group of entrepreneurs, professionals, and business leaders who are all connected, working to get healthy. Right? Working to make fitness a priority in their life. And so the question was, what's the biggest challenge? What's the area of fitness, nutrition, or health that really is sticky for you? And we have 5 core questions that came up that will really help to break apart maybe some challenges that you're having in your own life too.
And if you would like to join this community, we would be more than happy to have you. By the way, if you're not already a part of the Energy Secrets group for business owners and professionals, feel free to join us. We'll put a link in the show notes below. Really easy. You just have to go fill out membership questions and we will make sure to let you in so you can get access to all of our private content in there as well.
Easy enough.
That said, let's start with question number 1, which came from Liz. Scooting over to our questions here. So Liz said, my biggest challenge is finding motivation and considering it an important enough task. It, I'm assuming, means her workouts.
Yeah.
Right?
Or eating well.
Or eating well, taking care of herself. So kind of two challenges, right? It's finding motivation and then also making sure that it's an important task so she does it every week or every day or what have you. So I would break this apart almost into 2 different areas of motivation and then also prioritization. A little different.
So if you struggle with motivation, the first thing you should focus on is answering the question, what is my result? What is the thing that I want to accomplish? Whether that's your weight loss goal, whether that is your physique goal, whether that is your lifestyle goal, what is really important for you to move towards? Because motivation is the byproduct of having a target and seeing ourselves move towards it. I think of the way our brain works. We are a reward-seeking machine. And so if we don't believe that we're moving towards something, right, if we feel like, oh, I set the goal and I'm actually moving away from it, I'm going to start to feel less motivated. But if I can set the target and start taking consistent action to get to the target, I'm going to start to have more motivation. I'm going to start to anticipate that there is a reward coming. And that's really where the brain starts to kick in. So if you're lacking motivation, the first thing that you want to do is ask yourself, what's my goal? What's the result? And maybe it's a long-term result. Maybe it's something that you ask yourself, okay, where do I want to be in a year? Where do I want to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Building a longer time horizon, because a lot of times people get unmotivated, or they lose motivation rather, because they have such short-term health goals.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think when I think of this question or this challenge, the first thing that comes to my mind is sometimes you're just so close to the action, like so short-sighted, like, oh, I just need to work out today. I need to work out today. I need to work out. I need to work out. I need to work out in general. But we lose sight of what the actual big picture is, right? Then it just becomes a checklist we'll say check box. Yeah, a check box that you never actually get to. So if you zoom out and you actually look at why am I working out? What's the big what am I actually trying to work towards here? Definitely makes a big difference on your ability to feel like it's worth it, for one. But then 2, when I hear the word important, again, my first question is, well, what makes something important? What makes something important to you is completely different than what makes something important to me. I might think working out's important. You might think it's the last priority, but something you should do. So breaking it apart, for something to be important, it has to be high value, right? It needs to feel like it's purposeful. It's important for the quality of your life. It needs to, at some capacity, have a sense of urgency around it, right? If we aren't feeling any sense of urgency, there's no consequences, then we'll put it off. And we also have to, in some way, feel like it's required, like it's something I must do, especially if it's uncomfortable, because something might seem important, meaning it's high value, it's something I should do, it's something I can only do this morning, therefore there's some sense of urgency around it, but it's not really a requirement. I can go about my day and my life if I don't work out. If that's the mindset, then again, it's something that will fall off, right? So I think if somebody's struggling to make it a priority or make it important enough to do, really define why it's important.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of pairs well with your question of zoom out, look at the result, but then also figure out, like, where does working out fit in with that result and why is that important?
One of the hardest things for professionals to do is to start valuing their health when they have neglected it for years. Oftentimes, we'll walk clients through a exercise called the 5 core values, which is essentially you define using a few different tools what your 5 core values are. And we all have values, we all have core values that really shape the decisions that we make. And so for a lot of professionals, they value their business, they value their career, one of those are the same. They might value their family highly, oftentimes our clients do. They value maybe financial freedom or they value adventure. They have these different things that they value, but their health isn't one of those top values. And through the course of their coaching experience, we start to get them to put it as one of those top 5 values. They start reinforcing it, right? That it is important by their actions, right? Putting time into it, putting energy into it. Mm-hmm. And the key to getting yourself to value your health more is to start linking it to something else you value. So if you see your health in a silo by itself that doesn't impact your family, that doesn't impact your career, that doesn't impact your business, then whenever you're given the option to work out or to take care of yourself or be there with your family or do something for the business, you're going to choose the business or your family. And it doesn't mean you have to cut those things off, but you have to start to associate that what I do for myself improves my ability to perform my business. What I do for myself improves my ability to have longevity and be here for my family. If you don't link that doing something positive for your health improves another area of your life, it's always going to exist in a silo, and you're probably going to struggle to be consistent because you don't think it's important for the things that matter most in life.
Yeah, that leads into the next question really well, actually, because somebody asked a question around work-life fitness balance, mm-hmm. which I think flows really well. So basically, yeah, the question was, or I guess it was more of a request than a question. Christina says, I need help balancing work, life, and fitness. Mm-hmm. If we're already talking about values, then the next stage of that is once health is linked to another value, let's say it's valued in regard to your work. For us, that's really relevant because if we don't, and me specifically, if I don't take care of my body, if I don't go get a hard workout in, if I don't get a run, then I don't perform as well. I feel more maybe sluggish. I have less energy. I even have less confidence if I don't take care of myself at all physically. So that's linked. But how do you find the balance? There's a particular skill that I talk to a lot of clients about that's important when it comes to maintaining fitness and health for the long term. And that is the skill of dialing up or dialing back on your fitness based on the demands of your life. Mm-hmm. Think of that balance as an old scale that you have 2 sides to. You put something heavy and the other side goes up and vice versa. If you have your life, then you have all of your responsibilities on one side that are currently taking up your whole dynamic, your family, your business, whatever else, your marriage, whatever else is on this plate. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to now add fitness to the other side. Because in the past, all those weight of your family and your business has been completely putting the scale down at 0 or on the ground, and fitness is just out the window, right? Your health is out the window, and that's the challenge. Especially when family, work, and marriage get stressful. Because anybody can prioritize fitness for a little bit, but then when those other areas of life become demanding, fitness goes out the window. So the challenge is, how do we find a balance? How do we keep them in balance? How do we keep all things on the scale at all times? Well, In some seasons, you're going to see that your work and your marriage and your family are really demanding. But instead of saying, okay, well, I'm going to get back to this someday, you instead just dial it down. You look at your week as a whole and you say, all right, well, I'm really busy this week, but can I work out once? Can I move my body for 10 minutes a day and still take care of my body? Well, I could probably do that. And that gives you the ability to dial it back up when maybe some of those other things lighten up a little bit. But again, it kind of comes back to that whole, you have to be able to zoom out. You have to be able to look at your life as a whole and say, what do I need this week? I think we get so lost in the day, then the days stack up and they become months and years.
Well, you have to be so mindful of the story you're telling yourself too, because it's easy to allow the emotions of yesterday or last week to prevail into today. And it's like, if I had a bad week last week or I had a bad day yesterday, I really want to work to make it so that that doesn't show up in today. And if we're not conscious of the emotion or the state that we're in and how we're bringing that maybe to the present challenge, it's going to be really hard to be resourceful enough to solve it. So I was just talking to one of our clients who has, he's in this season where he's like, oh my God, I'm working. He's a business owner, so he's working extra. This is their busy season of the year. He's also coaching Little League. He's doing all this stuff. And he's like, I just feel like I'm just getting kicked in the face. And it's like, yeah, it is a busy season of life, but look at all these other things that you're doing. Look at all the things you're doing for yourself. And the reminder to him was, you're not going to work out as intensely as you did maybe 3 months ago. And you don't have to. But if you're not aware of, let's say, the negative state you're in, because that's what he was doing. He's like, oh my God, nothing's a win. It's like, well, you worked out 3 days this week consistently. You got in 10 minutes of movement. That's pretty solid comparison to where you were last year. If you're not aware of the state you're in when you're telling yourself a story, then you're going to allow that emotion to make you feel like you're failing. And when you feel like you're failing is when you fail, because you stop looking for opportunities to improve, and the problem becomes pervasive. It just bleeds into everything.
Yeah, I was talking to a client today too about negativity bias. Negativity bias is very real. It's basically this psychological principle or theory, you could say, that says anytime we feel something negative or we get into fear, it does become pervasive. It takes over. It's more intense than things that are positive or joyful or that are celebrations or that are wins. So if your life almost feels 50-50, like sometimes I'm on, sometimes I'm off, then you're going to basically build this story that you're inconsistent and you can't get anywhere and you're not making any progress, and it's going to feel much more negative than it actually is, which is maybe, I ate a dinner that was probably too big yesterday, so I woke up bloated. Instead of like, oh my God, I messed up everything yesterday, I'm off the wagon. Like, whoa, no, you're not. It's not that bad. All you have to do is course correct, get curious about what you could do differently.
And so when it comes to work-life balance, building off of it and tying it down, the most important thing is that you're specific on what balance looks like to you.
In this season.
What does balance look like in this season? What do you need? And how can you make sure that you're achieving the most important results for you, right? We're always looking for specificity. A lot of times we'll use words like, oh, I need to be balanced, or I need to be
better,
more consistent. And it's like, okay, but what does balance look like? What does consistency look like? What does motivation mean? Right? What are all these words meaning? Because if we're not aware of what we're seeking, then we label it, I need to be more balanced. And we don't give ourselves credit for maybe the balance that we could build, because it's not as high or it's not as perfect as the unconscious or unspecific target that we're setting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A lot of these questions come back to getting more specific and defining it for yourself, because everybody's definition is a little different. Question number 3, or challenge number 3, Angie said her biggest area of confusion or challenge is finding something that she likes enough to continue it as a habit, as opposed to something she does for a moment in time.
Yeah, that lack of consistency.
Yes. I was actually talking to somebody about this exact topic the other day. She said almost the exact same thing, but she said it in an anecdote form. She was like, I tried to build a daily movement habit. I was on the right path mentally, so I downloaded the yoga app, Yoga Go. And at first, it was really doable. It was like 15 minutes of yoga. I had to roll out my mat, do the yoga flow. And I did that every day. But then I thought, I should add something in for my neck. And, they do have this neck activity, but that's 15 minutes. And so I did that for a couple days. But then I completely fell off after 2 weeks. Like, well, do you see what happened there? You started raising the bar of something that was supposed to be super small and easy. And I think that's what we do as high achievers. Like if you're a business leader, if you're a business owner, you probably like to get after it. You like to challenge yourself. And without realizing it, you slowly increase the bar because it's not enough. It's not good enough. I could do more. I should do more. And we go too fast, right? And before you know it, it's something that you can't stick to, because it's just too much of a daily commitment. So with Angie's question, how do I find something I like enough to continue it as a habit? Part of it is probably lowering the bar and doing something that's easier than you think you even need, so that it's almost so stupid easy that you absolutely do it every day. But it's also coming back to, what is the reward for the habit you're trying to build? Like why that habit? Why that habit? If you're just trying to do it, again, for something that feels either frustrating or surface level, like if I don't walk for 5 minutes, I'm not going to lose weight. It's like, well, your brain's going to call BS because walking for 5 minutes isn't going to make you lose 5 pounds. So instead, it's coming back to, with a lot of what we do with our clients at the Fitness Project, is we try to link up a purpose to every habit. So the first question is, well, how would you like to feel as a result of this particular habit you're trying to build? We'll say it's a morning routine or a movement habit. Well, I really want to feel a sense of motivation or energy going into my day. Okay, so we need to find a habit that produces that type of reward that's also really, really easy to do.
Well, what I was going to say too, to build off of that, is if the habit that you're trying to build is not rewarding, you should ask yourself, what is the reward that you currently give yourself for doing it? Example, if you're someone who used to be in shape and it used to be easy for you to work out and you used to love your body, used to feel confident, and now you're not, you might actually have an unconscious story that you tell yourself about how hard workouts are versus what they used to be. And that might be the reward for your current workouts. I was talking to someone the other day who said, I just get so frustrated because when I work out, it's so hard. And they used to be easy. And so after I work out, I just feel defeated. I'm like, yeah, well, no wonder why you're not consistent. The reward for engaging in the workout is judgment. It's beating yourself up. It's comparison to where you used to be. Yep. And so you have to understand that if you want to repeat a behavior, it has to be rewarding in this season. So either you have to scale the workouts back so they're easy enough. You have to associate how you feel the rest of the day after you do that workout, physically, not mentally. And you have to have a way to reframe the story. You have to tell yourself something more empowering. You have to focus on where you're going versus where you've been. Because if the reward for the current behavior you're trying to build is judgment, it's not going to last.
Very true. Question number 4 then. Shannon said that her biggest question is, well, I guess it's more of a challenge again, all of the conflicting information on what's healthy and what isn't. How does she figure out what's healthy and what's not?
If you're struggling to figure out what is healthy versus what isn't, you have to understand that healthy eating is not binary. It's not good or bad. It's not healthy or unhealthy. It's a spectrum. And so again, a lot of what we're talking about today, first thing is, what's your result, right? Because your result is going to determine how you want to approach the goal. Meaning if your goal right now is to lose a certain amount of weight, well, you're going to eat a certain way to accomplish that goal. But when it comes to eating healthy, we want to think of it as a spectrum, meaning that our goal is not always to eat perfect, right? Because if we were eating perfect, we would all grow our own food. We would all have a farm. right? And
True.
we would have our own livestock. We would eat our own vegetables and fruit. And we would only eat local foods too, right? You'd only be able to eat what you farmed. That'd be the healthiest route. So if you think of that as one side, the other side is food that's not even food. Like gummy bears and baked goods that are loaded with sugar, like little Debbie snacks. Right? That's probably the one of the most unhealthy things you could eat. Right? There's going to be a spectrum. You can compare all the different foods. Maybe you have fried foods and,
Sure.
McDonald's and whatever. But those two opposites. So now what you have to ask the question of is, when I'm thinking of how I'm approaching my food throughout the day, how can I move closer to something that is whole, like a healthy whole food option? It doesn't necessarily have to be organic, right? It's more how close to nature is the food I'm putting in my body, right? And so we're always trying to eat less processed. And that's a really great question, is what's the healthiest option given my current lifestyle, given my current options that I have available to me, and how can I eat something that's more close to how it would show up in nature?
Right. And that's really the proper spectrum and way to look at it. It is nuanced, but it does function on a spectrum. And the easiest way to start wrapping your mind around what's healthy, what isn't, what am I supposed to do? Because there's so much marketing around, like, no, wait, don't eat that food. No, wait, avoid that, is just focus, get out of the world of marketing and social media, and just think, what foods are closest to their source? And their source, meaning they're one ingredient. An apple's an apple, right? A piece of steak is a piece of steak. How can you get as close to the source as you possibly can? That's going to be healthier for you versus something that is wildly processed, that has 30 ingredients, a lot of which you can't pronounce because they're chemical compounds, right? Try to look at just that spectrum to really start wrapping your mind around what's healthy and maybe what isn't for you. That will be a really good starting point. And then you can get further into, well, the nuance of what's healthy for my body versus yours.
Yeah, because then you got to look at your digestive health. You have to look at your blood work. So you have to be a constant student of yourself, and you have to be a constant student of your life if you want to be healthy, because what's going to work perfectly for Lindsay is not going to work perfectly for me. What's going to work for you is going to be a little bit different. The key is understanding that you're always trying to make the healthiest choice. What is the healthiest choice given the circumstance? And how can I continue to navigate towards my goal in a way that makes me feel like this is sustainable?
Yeah, and I'll give one little story too of the importance of being a student of your body. When we lived in Texas about 2 years ago, I started to have all of this acne and skin problems, things that I hadn't had happen since I was a teenager. I thought it had to be related to stress or my food, because that's really what leads to skin issues, is usually what's going on inside your body, right? Your skin is your biggest organ of your body. But for me, I was getting acne. And so I tried to look at my diet, and I was like, you know what? I'm not really eating anything differently. But I had heard at one point, probably 5 years prior, that vegetable oils were highly inflammatory. And I knew that, but I just hadn't thought about it because it wasn't something I included in my diet every day, or so I thought. I went and looked in the fridge at my creamer one day, and I had just turned it around, or like looked at the ingredients for whatever reason, and the first ingredient I thought was going to be cream was vegetable oil. That was the first ingredient in my creamer, and I just had no idea. Like, I just had never even thought, oh my gosh, the ingredients in my creamer are not cream. But when any of the sugar-free creamers, that's typically the first or second ingredient. So I had just a hypothesis. I wonder if this particular part of my day is actually causing skin issues. I had no idea. So I was like, I'm just going to test removing just that one thing, keep everything else in my diet the same. And within 2 weeks, every bit of my acne was gone. And I was like, whoa. It was crazy, the difference. So what you have to do, I say that because as much as you want to, we'll say, get it right, which was a lot of the questions we got, was like, oh, what's right? What's right? What's right? How do I do this right? It's all relative to your body. So there are principles, like we said, of healthy and unhealthy functions on a spectrum of whole food to processed. But then you also have to just stay a student, be curious, test things, play with things. And remember that there is no perfection in this game of health.
It's only healthy if it makes its way to your body. So all the perfectionist mindsets around what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, how many micronutrients does it have, does this food work, does that food work, does not matter if it does not make its way into your body. So you can have all the knowledge about what to eat, you can have all the understanding of what's perfect, and then still find yourself in Las Vegas at a conference where there's just cookies. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
So understand that the most important thing is that you make the best decision that you can in the moment, and you start to zoom out of maybe those other habits about what you put in your house and what you stop for on the way home.
Yep.
You change those two habits, 80% of the results are going to come.
Totally. Last question here. Question number 5 comes from Nicole. And she said, over time, I've received a lot of conflicting info. Eat X, don't eat Y. Do this to build muscle, don't do that to lose fat. So confusing. And I would agree. That was where I was at the beginning of my journey too. I was like, what the heck am I supposed to do? Just eat less and move more.
I heard a great quote one time from a business mentor of mine that says, every lever that you pull in your business should be done to produce a certain result. I use that as a point because every decision that you make for your health should be done to produce a certain result. They are not all the same. You're going to lift weights to build muscle, to increase bone density. And if you do those things, you will increase your metabolism. You're going to do cardiovascular training to improve your heart function. And if you do that consistently, you will probably burn more calories, which will mean that you'll lose weight. If you're going to optimize around protein, you'll probably feel fuller and your body will repair itself faster, making it easy for you to build muscle and to look leaner. The point is each item has its own purpose. They're not all the same. The most important thing you can do for your health, if you're confused, is don't put a whole lot of stock in supplements. Don't put a whole lot of stock in quick fix teas or medications that offer you the world but have a horrible, horrible side effect. Ask yourself, what are the decisions that I can make for my body, and how can I build this in a way that has some harmony? So I'm training with some strength. I'm moving my body to improve my cardiovascular health. I'm eating enough protein. I'm getting some fruits and vegetables. It's the fundamentals. If you do the fundamentals well, you will have a healthy life.
Yeah, and specifically on the train of how do I produce physical results, meaning, to Nicole's question, how do I build muscle and I lose body fat? Instead of, like you said, looking at all the different shiny objects, all these things that promise the world for you but don't actually do anything, at their very base, there are principles across every single body that apply when you look at how do I build muscle and how do I lose body fat. So let's break it down slightly to clarify this a little bit. So it's not just in your mindset, it's also things that you do, things that you can count on, because that's really the key, is where is the certainty? What can I count on? How do I actually do this? Not how do I think about it, but what do I actually do? Building muscle requires you to add resistance to your current body. You have to challenge the current muscles that exist and break them down in order for them to grow and rebuild. That's how you, quote, build muscle. You have to break it down and then it repairs itself and it builds and it grows and it gets stronger. How do you do that? Resistance. How do you add resistance? To Brian's point, weights, strength training. At first, you can use your body weight, but eventually you're going to need some other resistance, whether it's machines or it's free weights, barbells. There are so many different tools or instruments you can use to add resistance to your body, but at the root, you have to challenge your muscle. You have to progressively tax it. You can look into something called progressive overload. We talk about it a lot, but you have to add resistance. And then your body also needs to be able to repair itself by having some type of fuel so that it can repair. And what is that fuel for muscle specifically and tissue? It's protein. The vast majority of people don't eat enough protein to recover their body if they're going to be strength training.
You need to be eating about 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass.
Correct.
So you can figure that, you multiply your current weight by 0.75, that'll give you a good enough answer, or you can just do 1 times your body weight. But 0.75 is adequate.
Yeah, it's per lean pound of body mass too. So I'm not 140 pounds of solid muscle. I'm probably about 110, 115 pounds of muscle. So I need to have 115 or so grams of protein a day
You
at
might
least.
be a little more than that. You got some good muscles.
There's some muscle. But that is, and so you need the fuel, and then you need rest and recovery. So if you're strength training hard and you're eating protein and you're not getting anywhere, but you're sleeping 2 hours a night, you're missing a crucial piece of building muscle, which is your body has to be able to recover. Right? So let's put that on the side. Those are 3 things that you have to do to build muscle. The second area of losing fat, that really comes back to being at a caloric deficit so that your body has to use the current fat on your body as fuel. Think about that. You have to be at a slight caloric, so calories, deficit, meaning you're eating slightly less than your body actually needs to maintain. Because it forces your body to say, where else can I get fuel for my natural daily processes from your body fat, right? That logically makes sense, but we way overcomplicate it. Okay, so we're just talking baseline. And what is a proper deficit? Typically, it's around 500 per day, less than your body actually will say needs to maintain. For some people, that's too much and it's too hard to do that. So you can start less than that. You can increase your exercise to create more of a deficit. It doesn't just have to come from food, but your body has to be taking in about 500 calories less than it's expending. So you can expend a little bit more, you can eat a little bit less, and that's how it works. Now, if you put those together, we say, how do we build muscle and how do we lose body fat? We have to strength train progressively, taxing the muscles more and more. We have to give our body adequate fuel so we have the energy to work out and so we can recover carbs, fat, and protein. And we have to rest and recover. And we have to be at a slight caloric deficit so that our body can actually lower our body fat percentage.
And more importantly, you have to be patient.
Yes.
It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes a lot of effort to build muscle.
Yes.
So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get there in a week, probably going to take a couple months. Set a 3 to 6 month goal. You'll be blown away when that happens. But these are our 5 Q&As today. We hope this is helpful. Maybe in the future we'll be a little more brief, but we thought we'd go deep for you. Feel free to comment any of your questions that we should answer in the next round of our Conquer the Q&A. And on that note, I'm Brian Pickwitz.
I'm Lindsay Pickwitz.
Now go out and conquer your day.
Cheers.
Cheers.